We want to go to Mike Seidel right now. He's reporting on the storm in Tidewater, Virginia. And Mike, this is going to be the biggest snowstorm of the season in that area.
It won't take much. They've only had a half an inch of snow, and 1/10 of that 5/10 fell last night with the Arctic front, and that sets the stage today for a really cold day by Tidewater standards. Temperatures have been at 27 now for 10 consecutive hours. The average high is 50, so a very cold day. Winds running north, we're gusting over 30 miles an hour, and the wind chills have been running 10 to 15 all day here in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. The snow is very powdery and very fine, as you can see on the air. These flakes are not big at all. There's a lot. See the snow blowing across the highway. We'll look over here at the section. You can see in the lights how the snow is blowing horizontally with these winds sustained at 20, and we've had our peak gusts around 31 miles an hour. In the distance, I don't know if Matt Safer could see the flashing lights. That's a team of snowplows coming down the highway. We're right off Military Highway here in Norfolk near the airport. So they're out there salting and plowing, and they're going to be scraping the snow. So on the radar, you can see where the snow is right now. Coming in off the Atlantic. It's not snowing in Richmond, not quite. It may be snowing aloft, snowing down in Elizabeth City, and the snow will continue here overnight. As far as snowfall totals, we're looking at 3 to 5 inches in the Tidewater. Keep in mind the seasonal snowfall total is 6.2 inches. So this is a pretty big storm, but you really don't have to go that far back. They don't get a lot of snow, but they get big ones because of the location right near the coast. If they get a nor'easter and they have the cold air, look out. They've had 18-inch snowstorms here, and just 4 years ago they had a snowstorm of 10 inches. That was the last big one here in the Tidewater. Let's go down to Raleigh-Durham, where their average snowfall is a little bit higher. Justin, cold temperatures there. What's the status on the roadways where you're standing? Good evening once again. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. We're hanging out here in the beautiful Tidewater, Virginia. Typically, you'll find us over at Virginia Beach during hurricane season or for nor'easters, but tonight we're inland in Norfolk. Beautiful city right on the water. A lot of water around here, but we're out by the airport and a lot of wind and the snow. Now notice the snowflakes are very, very small. The air is very, very cold. We're at 27, and you can see how the snow is blowing down the sidewalk and down the roadways. It's a very powdery, dry snow. No way you can make a snowball or a snowman out of this. And we're looking at 3 to 5 inches of snow before this wraps up before sunrise tomorrow morning. The winter storm warning from the guys and gals at the Weather Service over in Wakefield runs till 10 a.m., primarily because we're going to have road issues through tomorrow morning, even during the afternoon. Temperatures tomorrow only get up to about 33, 34. And then, Carl, tomorrow night, it's the old refreeze and thaw and refreeze. So a little melting tomorrow, 20 tomorrow night, more melting Sunday, and a refreeze on Monday morning. So we'll see how that impacts schools as we get into Monday morning. But at this point, I'd say do your homework. It doesn't really matter now because everybody's doing e-learning, so the traditional snow day that you and I always look forward to, which I never had in junior and senior high school because of where I grew up in Maryland, those have kind of gone by the wayside now.
Well, not everybody's doing e-learning. Cobb County. All right, thanks so much,
That's
Mike.
True.
Appreciate it. Let's take a look at for the next several days here. So we're going to have some problems on the roads for quite some time.
Yeah, we are. Certainly tonight, they're already snowpacked, snow covered. We've seen the plows come by. They have salted. Tomorrow morning, the snow is over with by sunrise. But if you're traveling in the morning, temperatures are still going to be in the upper 20s. Now, tomorrow's high is going to squeak just above freezing, and we will get some sunshine in the afternoon. That will help the roads out, especially ones that have been plowed, scraped, and treated. But then tomorrow night, like we talked about in Greenville and Charleston, West Virginia, it's the thaw, melting, and refreeze. Tomorrow night we go down to around 20. So everything's going to refreeze. On Sunday we get up to around 40 or so, more melting, and then we're going to refreeze again Sunday night and Monday morning. So there you go. Just be careful, especially tomorrow morning if you're going out the door, say 7 or 8 o'clock right after sunrise, because it's still going to be below freezing. But that daylight and that sunshine will really help us out. Look at how the wind's blowing the snow. We'll get Matt Safer to shoot it over there through the halogen lights, and it is snowing, and there are the plows. 1, 2, 3, 3 plows, it looks like, right there. They don't have their blades down, but let me tell you, there's not a lot of snow on the road. We've had about a ½ an inch, and because it's so dry and powdery, it's kind of just blowing around. As you can see here on this ramp, on this access road to Military Highway, there's snow blowing, but there's also a lot of asphalt. So putting the blade down is not going to move much, if any, snow. So I can understand why their blade's not down. I will see if they're dropping salt. They are fully loaded, though, with salt. We'll keep you updated from Virginia Beach and also Raleigh, Durham, and Norfolk. Stay with us.
I want to take you farther up the coast now into Tidewater, Virginia. Mike Seidel reporting on the storm from an area that is not too terribly far from where you grew up, Mike, and really didn't see a whole lot of snow in that area prior to this event.
No, only a ½ an inch, 1/10 last night with the Arctic front. Right now we've got at least a ½ an inch on the ground. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of snow, but remember in the Tidewater, because they're so close to the water and the Gulf Stream, they don't get a lot of snow. Average snowfall, the new 30-year average, is 6.2 inches, and we're looking at 3 to 5 inches, making a mess of the roadways. Let's get the latest from Virginia DOT, and we've got Brittany McBride Nichols over in Hampton Roads. Brittany, thanks for joining us this evening. I'm sure you're glad to be inside warm and dry.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what we are urging the public to do as well. The safest place to stay inside is inside during these storm events.
Give us an idea of how much equipment you have out on the roads. We just saw 3 plows over here near the Virginia Beach, near the Norfolk airport, and they were putting down a lot of salt, but not scraping. And as you know, there's not a lot of snow to scrape at this point, plus it's blowing around.
Correct. Yeah. So we've had 24-hour operations going in the Hampton Roads region since Wednesday morning. We have more than 300 trucks equipped with plows and spreaders to work the event. We've had crews pre-treating the interstates and state-maintained roadways leading up to the snowfall, and now during the snowfall, we've been treating these roads. And we're continuing just to carefully monitor and treat the roadways, paying special attention, of course, to the bridges and overpasses, which tend to freeze first. And once the snow accumulates to approximately 2 inches on the roadways, that's when we'll have the trucks put the plows down and begin plowing and clearing the roads. But in the meantime, we're just continuing to treat the roads with salt and abrasives.
And good to know that, because, you know, you get a lot of feedback. Why doesn't the plow have the blade down? And there's good reason. And I've explained tonight on the air that there's just not much to scrape. In fact, about half the asphalt or the asphalt and concrete is visible. Now, tomorrow morning, the snow wraps up. Do you get another shift on to do the cleanup after the snow ends and we start to get some slush with the warmer temperatures tomorrow?
Absolutely. So we have crews staffed through the weekend. We'll be monitoring and treating the roadways with salt to help break down ice, and then also sand to enhance traction for vehicles. But with the freezing temperatures still forecasted overnight and through tomorrow, we're still urging the public to please stay off the roads during this time frame, and still it's safest to stay home.
Okay, Brittany McBride Nichols, thanks for joining us and updating us tonight from Hampton Roads, the VDOT, the DOT of Virginia, giving us the latest here. And we're out here near the Norfolk International Airport, and it's been 27 degrees now for 11 hours in a row. Boy, you don't often see that except in maybe a marine climate on the West Coast. Wind chills are still running between 10 and 15 degrees, and our forecast is for 3 to 5 inches of snow here in the Tidewater of Virginia. It's also snowing down in North Carolina. Let's go down to Raleigh, Durham, and check in with Justin Michaels, the latest there on the snow, the wind, and the roads. Justin?
Well, Mike, up to you now.
Yeah, exactly. And here are the plows once again. And we just talked to Virginia DOT, and she told us that until the snow accumulates 2 inches, they won't have the blades down. They don't have the blades down, but they have dumped a ton of salt, and we can see that second truck there, Matt Safer, if you can zoom in on the back of the truck. They are spreading a lot of salt, and they already went down this roadway once. And the roadway here, this is 13 Military Highway, is wet and slushy thanks to all the salt, despite the temperature is 27 degrees. So they're taking good care of the major highways here in the Tidewater, and they will do that overnight, and then the cleanup in the morning as the snow winds down before sunrise. Temperatures tonight really aren't going to go anywhere. 27 now, as I said, for 11 11 consecutive hours, and it's really not going to get any colder tonight. Tomorrow night, with lighter winds and clear skies, Carl, that's the setup for a colder night and a big refreeze. And again, Sunday night and Monday morning, we'll do the same thing over with temps Sunday back above 40. Carl?
And Mike, I know it can be perilous to talk about things that are a little ways down the road, but I'm sure you've seen the models going out some distance to around 200 hours. Of course, back and forth as you'd expect at that distance, but some hints about what may be along the East Coast in that time frame.
Did you really have to go there? Yes. We've all been watching what's going to be potentially happening. That would be, what, about next weekend. And I did notice on the morning runs that both the European and the American model GFS, they both have a coastal storm.
Yeah.
But again, this is more than a week away, and let's deal with this first. But it certainly shows that the trough is going to continue in the east for now, although there's some sense that as we get into February, the ridge may switch back, and we may get colder or snowy weather in the west and a little warmer weather back east. But yes, everybody now can see the models on the internet. Whether you're a seasoned meteorologist like Carl Parker, or if you're a budding meteorologist, you know, in the basement with your computer eating your Cheetos, you can see those models. And so it gets out on social media very quickly. Yeah. And that's the way it is these days. So yeah, we'll watch it for you and see how it shakes out and see where we may or may not be standing this time next week. How's that?
And we should point out that, you know, several days ago, the models were hinting at a big storm this weekend associated with this front,
right?
And that did not materialize, and so, you know, you certainly can see them going back and forth. It is early yet, but just something to kind of put in your back pocket at this time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the European had a storm going up the coast for about a day and a half, and then it dropped it, and this is what we're left with. But a week out, no. Now, if it's May in Phoenix, it's going to be sunny and 85 a week out. But in this situation, no. You just have to keep an eye on the models. We'll keep you updated on the Weather Channel. You know, we've got a dog in this fight. Carl?
Yeah, we certainly do. That's right, Mike. Thank you so much. And let's take a look at what's going on right now. And you've got this big... Let's get back out to Mike Seidel. He's been reporting on the storm in Tidewater, Virginia, where it is very cold and very windy tonight. Mike?
It is. Temperature is staying at 27 now, 11 hours in a row. You don't see that very often. Maybe I should play the lottery. Also, the wind, as Carl mentioned, we've been gusting 25 to 30. We're sustained around 15 to 20. So the wind chills have been biting cold all day, running between 10 and 15. So at 27 degrees, it's a very powdery snow. These are small flakes, but you can see it whipping in the wind across Northampton and Military Highway here outside of the Norfolk International Airport, where tomorrow they have already canceled 16 departures. That's about a third of their inventory tomorrow. I would assume most of those are morning flights that didn't get in this evening, and 2 arrivals. And if my memory serves me correctly, one is coming from Houston Bush and one from San Francisco. 3 to 5 inches of snow ends before sunrise. Tomorrow we get some melting with a high about 34 degrees, and then we refreeze as we go into Sunday morning with lows around 20.
Tidewater, Virginia, and talk to our Mike Seidel. And Mike, we have not seen a whole lot of snow this season there in Virginia Beach, but we're getting some tonight, along with wind and terrific cold, and that's not going to change very much at all.
No, this is a pretty cold day for the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. Keep in mind the average high is 50, and for 11 straight hours, it was 27 degrees through the afternoon, through the morning, the afternoon, and now as of 10 o'clock Eastern, it's dropped down to 26 at nearby Norfolk International, where, by the way, a better day tomorrow, 16 departures canceled. Those are mostly morning flights. Today we had 52 flights in and out of Norfolk that were canceled. Look at the snow blowing in the wind tonight out here, Military Boulevard, Northampton Boulevard, not far from the airport. Plows have been out doing a little bit of scraping, but there's just not a lot of snow on the road. It's blowing around. It's really hard to measure. We've had at least an inch, maybe an inch and a half, but it's blowing everywhere, so trying to measure it's virtually impossible. It is a very dry, powdery snow. We'll show you some video Matt Safer shot earlier over around Chesapeake, Virginia, as the snow is beginning to add up. This is just after sundown, so we're talking about 5:30 this evening, 5:30 this evening. And again, this is going to be, for this area, a fairly decent-sized snowfall. Now, keep in mind their seasonal average is 6.2 inches, but just 4 years ago they had a 10-inch snowfall. So occasionally they get the big ones because they're right here near the Atlantic Ocean. But most of the time, the warm air comes in off the Gulf Stream and they get rain. But occasionally, they'll get hit pretty hard. I remember the one early March 1980. That one, Elizabeth City had like 2 feet of snow. I was down in Fort Lauderdale. We had severe weather. And then that Monday, March 3rd, 1980, it was 32 there, and they had a ton of snow up here. So occasionally, they get the big coastals and nor'easters. That's not one of those, but bottom line is, it is a plowable snowfall here in the Tidewater. And also over in the Raleigh-Durham area. Let's check in with Justin Michaels and get a sense of the latest on the conditions there. Justin?
Up to you now in Norfolk.
Yeah, so we've got some Dominion power crews that are on standby here in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, and I saw some of them at dinner, and I said, well, we're not going to have any issues here because it's all snow, it's powdery, and it's just not going to add any weight to anything. It's just coming down to the ground. But I did give them a heads up, and they said, you know, if needed, they'll head south into the Carolinas if needed, and they said they've been all over. Last weekend, they were out in west of here, out towards the Shenandoah, where they had some issues with power. So we really appreciate the power crews to come out and work in this weather and get the power back on so we can stay warm. And you need to stay warm tonight. I tell you, 26 degrees, wind chills down around 10, the snow blowing horizontally. Matt Safer, we can shoot the snow and the lights, the sodium vapor lights. And yes, it's not snowing particularly hard. Our visibility at the airport's about a mile and a mile and a quarter. But the bottom line is, it is adding up, and it is adding up as fast as it can because of the snow ratios, because it is a very dry and powdery snow. 3 to 5 inch total overnight tonight, and then tomorrow, Carl, will get up to about 34, 35, a little bit of melting, and then it will refreeze again tomorrow night into Saturday morning, rather Sunday morning. Carl?
And Mike, you know, a lot of people looking at the long term, looking for those very broad atmospheric signals, and there are some suggestions that we might be into a milder pattern by the time we get into February. But at least it's going to continue to be quite cold in the east and maybe fairly stormy as well for the next week or two.
Yes, we're watching the European and GFS models because they're both hinting at some kind of coastal storm in about 8 or 9 days. That is a long, long way off. But, you know, I got to ask you, what's the one thing you really have noticed about this next potential storm between the European and GFS, besides the fact that they've kind of come together today?
Well, yeah, I mean, when they're both showing it, certainly that's interesting. I think it's also, you know, interesting that it's showing a very sharp trough developing. And, you know, as you and I know, that's a zone where if the trough is in the perfect position, you absolutely can see major development in that area because of that temperature gradient between the ocean and the very cold air spilling down. So, you know, it is a zone where there is that potential for a major storm. So it doesn't seem to be all that far-fetched. The question, of course, is that long wave pattern going to be set up just perfectly?
And the track, as we've seen, the past couple storms have been inland storms, and we've had, for instance, the last storm, it was all rain. A little bit of snow, maybe on the front end in New York City, but primarily rain and very warm, whereas the snow was primarily along and west of the mountains, and the one before that, too. So we really haven't had, except for one, a storm that stays along or off the coast, and the cold air stays along I-95. So we'll see how that goes. But you can see how wintry it is tonight here in the Tidewater. This is not typical for them. It does happen, but this is not your typical January day. The temperatures this afternoon were about 25 degrees below average, courtesy of the Arctic air mass that blew in here last night, and that's setting the stage for the ice south of here.
Yeah, just fierce cold there tonight. Mike, thank you so much. Virginia. I want to go out to Mike Seidel right now. And Mike, just a brutally cold day there in Tidewater, Virginia.
It has been. Our temperatures this afternoon stayed in the upper 20s. A sure sign of this is pure Arctic air, and it set the stage for the snowstorm, biggest one of the season. But we're very fortunate. It's cold all the way through the column, so it's below freezing all the way up where the precip is manufactured. So it starts to snow, does not remelt and refreeze or come down and refreeze on the surface. So it's all snow all the time. That's the way it's going to be till about 4 or 5 in the morning. Then it will shut down. It's very fine, powdery snow, and the wind is just blowing it around. Winds are gusting 20 to 25 miles an hour. You can see the snow blowing in the sodium vapor streetlights here off Military Boulevard outside of Norfolk International, where we just turned a plane land. Now, they had about 50 cancellations today. Tomorrow so far, no changes through the evening hours. Reporting 16, FlightAware reporting 16 departures are canceled, 2 arrivals, and I'm betting that most of those departures are the morning flights because the snow is going to end. We're looking for a storm total of 3 to 5 inches. I can tell you it's tough to measure out here. We've got probably 1.5 inches to 2 inches because it's all blowing around. We'll keep you updated. The more significant impact will be to the south because of the freezing rain and ice. More on that coming up next.